experience with this defense, and the other side that is still learning and having to grow and put things together, and they're going against each other. How do you measure the growth of the team overall in that kind of situation?
Well, I think the biggest thing, as far as the defense is concerned, being where they are, it's about taking what you've done the last few years and growing, adding the little nuances that you couldn't get initially because you're still learning. I think we're at that point now where, especially in talking with Jack, the different things that they're doing, the little nuances to the defense that can be solutions for some of the things that we struggled with last year. Offensively, it could be from everything from now getting into formations. That's just probably one of the more important things, and understanding motions and shifts as to why we do those things, and then understanding the route combinations. Why am I running this particular route in this particular concept? You know what I'm saying? I mean, those are all the details that these guys are learning in the meetings. Now take that and put it on the field and then retain it. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot. One thing Eric is doing is he is throwing a lot at the guys, and is forcing them to study. He's forcing them to do the extra things to get up to speed as quickly as he wants them. And I've said this before. We're not game planning out here. So you're not sitting there. You're not taking of the volume of 300, 350 plays and narrowing that scope for the game plan. So these guys have to learn a lot, retain a lot, and then take it and put it on the field. And so that's what you're trying to see.
So when you're watching the offense then, because of that situation, is it hard to, do you have to work to be really honest with yourself about, is that a trickle-down effect of the learning or of a bad play?
No, and that's exactly it. Because when we sit there, when I've come to do now is I'm bouncing in and out of offensive, defensive meetings as quickly as I can to catch certain aspects of what's going on. So when I'm out there and I see something happen, I'll write it down. And then when I get back up there, I look at my notes, it's okay, I got to go in and make sure. Okay, so I go in and trying to hear the explanation as to why and how, what happened. So whether it is just, a good play by the defense and on offensively, we did everything we're supposed to, or, hey, we didn't do this right. And that's one of the things that when you sit down and you listen to Eric breaking it down with the offensive coaches, it's like, hey, that's on us. If we did this, and if we'd have kept that 7 high, we have a much better throw, a much better alley for the quarterback to throw into. Now you start thinking, okay, so it's understanding the concepts and why I'm supposed to push that high as opposed to flatten it out. So yeah, there are those things that you look for as to the explanations as to what's going on out there. Are they learning? Are they learning quickly? And then go back to it is, did we make that mistake again? Did that same guy run? And I got a great example from yesterday. And then on Monday, we were running the 7 route and it was flat, and it gave the hinge corner a chance to get there and almost make the play. And Eric went and corrected it right away. Guys, you got to understand this is when you see that open space, push to it. If you got to climb. Well, we ran it, same play, opposite side, same receiver. This time he pushed it high and it was a big completion.
Hey, Ron, it looked like unless Halloween came early, the referees are here. I was just curious.
That's his quote. Don't get me in trouble, please.
Obviously, it's a part of the ritual of training camp. Mm-hmm. What do you, specifically for your players, what are you kind of telling them, or what do you kind of hope to see with the refs are?
Well, a couple of things is tell them, hey, guys, if you have a question on any of your techniques, whether, especially in man coverage, especially in offensive route running, especially offensive holding defense, ask for an explanation. If they pull the flag out on you, go and ask. Don't be confrontational. Just ask, hey, what did I do wrong? What did you see? Get an explanation as to what they're looking for, why they're looking for it. And one thing we will have them in our meetings. They're going to do their presentation this afternoon on the new rules and take any questions the players have. And then our coaches are going to invite them to come into specific rooms for specific questions. Like the umpire will go in with the offensive line and defensive line at different times and talk about offensive, defensive holding. The back judge, side judges, they'll go in with the DBs and receivers and explain to them coverage. What are they looking at in terms of pass interference? So we expect to do all those things and get as much information as we can.
And with regards to Sam, there's obviously a lot of interest in how he's progressing. We all get asked about it. We all ask you.
Yeah.
It's a vicious cycle. But when you look at when you look at where he's at, on the one hand, he's a young guy with one career start, and you have to look at him in those terms of progression. On the other hand, you guys are a team trying to make the playoffs, trying to get a winning record. So how should people look at him when in these discussions of what you're saying and others about what he's doing?
Well, I think it's to me it's right now this is all the growth and development opportunity. This is a chance to learn the base fundamentals of our offense, and he's been doing it since OTAs and minicamp. Now we're in training camp. We're in our 8th day now. So all these things are coming together. What you really need to look for is when we get on the field. When we do game plan, when we do prepare. I know it's just preseason games, but those are going to be paramount to telling everybody where he is, what's his growth. And at the same time, as I've said don't sleep on Jacoby. He's done a nice job as well. I mean, we got some really good quarterback play going on right now. We've got a real good quarterback room. We're very happy with what we've got right now. And again, we just want to continue to see the growth. So now when we go into those meetings and I listen to Eric and I listen to Vita talk about what he's doing, how he's doing it, and listen to Luke and his opinion and Kenny Zampese. I mean, we got 4 guys really dedicated to the development of the one position. I think that's real, that's a good start for us, and I think it's been a good start for him in camp.
Talking about the quarterback specifically there, but kind of zoom out a little bit. In your 3 years here, the offense has held you back. The defense has played good ball. How do you feel about this offense 8 days into camp?
I like where we're headed. I really do. I mean, we've seen some really good things. Again, one of the things that we talked about, in bringing Eric Bieniemy here was getting the ball to our playmakers in space. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there's been several balls that have gone quicker to Terry in certain areas, to Jahan, to Curtis, with the occasional shot going vertical, getting the ball into the tight ends' hands, utilizing them even more, expanding their role, and then also not just handing the ball off to the running backs. I mean, yesterday we had an extended 9-on-7 period, run period. It went along, went very well. Some really good things that we saw, but also using them as a receiving weapon. Again, getting the ball in their hands in space, whether it's coming out of the backfield or running a swing route. We've got to get the ball into the playmakers' hands quickly, and so we can get the explosives.
Do you think that can kind of build on the year that Curtis had last year? How do you think Bieniemy's scheme affects Curtis Samuel specifically?
Oh, I think it fits him very well. Go back and get an opportunity to look at the stuff that they did in Kansas City and look at how creative and inventive they have been over the years with the receivers that they've had. Everything from running the jet sweeps to going vertical to working underneath and the coverages against the coverages. It's about getting the ball into the hands as quick as possible, in as much space as possible, allowing these guys to make plays. One of the things that they've been noted for over the years, it's always been their yards after catch. Once the player has taken possession, how explosive have they been?
And with Derek Forrest, there was a stretch last year, starting in the second Philly game. He played the rest, all the snaps the rest of the way. What was it kind of slightly before then that you as a staff kind of realized this guy needs to play as much as he did?
Well, I think you started to see it was his playmaking ability first and foremost early on. He gets the big interception in the first game, and you just knew, this young man had a little something to him. And then you see how fast he plays. And one of the things in talking with Jack is, you got to get the speed on the field. And guys like him that are explosive, that can run, and dynamic, you want on the field. Another young guy to keep an eye on is Percy. Percy's a guy that runs very well and plays very fast. So you've got to find ways to get those type of players on the field.
Take 3 more. Coach, did you get a chance to see Terry McLaurin's interview from the other day with Ryan Clark? Have you had a chance to see that or hear that yet?
No.
Okay, just one of the aspects I wanted to ask you about that he talked about in it, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he talked about what he's confident about this team is they're putting in the work, he's seeing the time, he feels like this core group is kind of ready to step up, and that's what he likes about it, no matter what everybody's saying about them. You've played on successful teams, you've coached successful teams. What makes the difference between being kind of ready to win and actually executing it?
Well, I think first and foremost, and I used the word the other day, I think there's a maturity you have to have, a certain type of growth that points to doing things the right way. A lot of times it's, you have to, you must, you gotta. Now it's, hey, we want to. And that, I think, is what Terry was alluding to, is that these are the things these guys want to do. These are the things that, is real pleasing me. I mentioned it yesterday, and that was, if you look out there and you look at the guys after practice, okay, there's no coaches out there. These are the guys after practice. And when you start getting pods of guys, positional groups working together, working with themselves, trying to help one another get better as a unit, that's probably the biggest sign of growth, is that they understand now how important it is, what it takes. And really, again, it's them taking ownership. That used to be one of the biggest things that I always used to remember Mike Dick always harping at us about, was taking ownership. And talking with Coach Gibbs, one of the things that he said that he recognized, back in the day, is that when the guys took ownership of themselves, he said, everything from, doing little extra things to just hanging out together as a group. Those are special, and so that's what you look for. And when you start seeing those things, these guys going to Topgolf, going bowling, hanging out later on, that's what you want to see.
Hey, Rotten, in another part of that interview, Terry talked about how dramatically therapy has changed his life over the last 2 years. He's always been the same guy with us publicly, but have you seen, because he was a leader and kind of this model citizen by the time you got here, but the last 2 years specifically, have you seen a change from him behind closed doors?
Not just behind closed doors, but I think out in the public too, when I have seen some of the clips of him going out and getting into the community. But just kind of watching the way he has stepped up as a leader and being more vocal. I mean, that when I first got here, he was a leader more by example, less by what he was saying. Now you see him not just by example, but adding his 2 cents, and he is one of those guys, kind of like E.F. Hutton. When he talks, everybody listens.
What have you seen from Sam in terms of processing and decision-making specifically so far?
That's one of the things that's been really cool, is to watch him when you see him recognize it and process it. Part of it, though, is his timing has to get a little bit better when he does see it and get to it. And one of the things that I'm always looking for is as he goes through his progressions, where is that ball placement when he gets to his second or third progression? If that ball is slightly ahead right where it needs to be, then he's processing on time. When it starts getting to that back shoulder and there's no defender here, then he's late. If there's a defender here, it should be on the back shoulder. But when you see it, when there's no reason for it to be there, then he's seeing it, but he's got to process it faster. So we're looking for those kind of hints as we're watching him on tape. So every one of his throws, I sit there and watch it and try to see how long it took for him to get to where he needs to. And it's not just him going through it, but also getting to that point where he gets to his setup. Is his footwork good? That's that was one of the things we talked about last year. And that was one of the points that we always try to make about him, was that is his footwork where it needs to be? And one of the things that Tavita talked about is that for the most part, it's been really good until he gets near the end. He does get a little tired, a little lazy with it, and he's got to push himself through that. And it's early in camp.
Last one.
You've mentioned that the enemy would have a greater say in sort of the off-season script and practices and whatnot. Is there anything he's implemented just in things you guys are doing in practice?
Well, I think one of the things that we've done, Nikki, more than anything else, is we've instead of having as many periods as we had, we've limited some days where we've only had 4 action periods. Today we'll have 6, but we've had some where we've only gone 4. But we've spent more time. When we did 9-on-7 yesterday, we spent more time on specifically 9-on-7. Sometimes when we get into the 7-on-7 stuff, we'll spend more time on third down situations, whether third and short, third medium, third long. Instead of just going through and getting, hey, we're going to get 10, we'll focus in, and that 15 or 20 minutes would be dedicated specifically to that. So instead of bouncing from one to the other, like today, we'll do a few more. We'll add a couple extra action periods as opposed to just having 4, because there are some things that he just wants to touch on. So those are things that we've talked about in terms of the way he's structured practice.
Just one quick follow. I know the pre-snap motion is a hallmark of this offense, and in practice you guys are always moving. Do they still wear the trackers? Or they
Yes.
Putting in more steps than usual?
They're putting more steps than usual. And one of the things that, the reason we put it on is to find out, just how much they're getting. They're putting in a lot more, movement, a lot more steps. They're covering a lot more ground. And this is all part of the conditioning aspect as well. but they're in shorter bursts too. If you've noticed, we've spent more time around the red zone, so instead of running long vertical routes, the routes are shortened right now, so they're working on the quickness and the efficiency of the route running. And as we track it, though, and you look at what these guys are, instead of 3, 4, 5 guys that are in the higher ranges, we're getting 8 to 10 more guys in the higher ranges. So a lot more guys are getting quality work, and that's a result of the way we're practicing. It's a little bit different, a little bit out of our comfort zone, but we are getting to it. All right, cool. Thank you, guys.
See you tomorrow morning.
Brian.